Every commercial HVAC contractor knows what busy season feels like. Phones ringing nonstop, schedules packed beyond capacity, your team stretched thin. And if you're not careful, the busiest time of the year can also become the most chaotic time, and not necessarily the most profitable either. But the best commercial HVAC contractors, they're not just surviving the rush. They build operations that actually perform better under pressure, and the data backs that up. Top performers complete 15% more work per technician, dispatch twice as fast, and earn 10% higher gross margins, not by working harder, but by running a more connected operation. The question is, what does it actually look like in practice? How do you make sure you're ready for peak season? That's what we're here to talk about today. I'm Manny Morales, VP of Product here at ServiceTrade, and I'm joined by Brad Boggs, President of BMW Mechanical Contractors in Atlanta. Brad has been growing BMW for over a decade, and he's going to share what's actually taken to build a business that runs well under pressure. Brad, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. So I'm going to jump into some questions for you, Brad. As we kind of get started, can you give me a bit of an overview of BMW, B&W? How many people? What kind of work do you all do? What does busy season kind of look like for you guys?
Well, we've been in business for 58 years. We're traditionally, or I should say, historically, we were a construction company that did a little bit of service. Over the last about 20 years that I've been here, or 23, we've been growing the service group a lot more concentrated over the last decade. And we've become a service company that still does a little bit of construction. A little bit more than just the semantics of saying it that way, but target around 30 million a year in revenue. I would say, we're currently, or as of last year, about 65-70% of that is service, which is not kind of the anything to scoff at. We ran about, I think I measured, we had about 8,500 transactions or 8,500 service calls last year. So HVAC wise, obviously this is our busy season in Atlanta. The summer is hot. On our plumbing side, busy season, it's a very reactive service, more so than HVAC. So in that reaction just kind of comes, obviously when it's colder and we have freezing pipes and those sort of things, we get more service calls, but block drains and that sort. So that busy season is a little harder to forecast for. It can pop up at any time. It can happen while HVAC is in their busy season or not, or it can happen, when HVAC is, just doing maintenances. So that's a little harder to plan for that busy season. And it's
Yeah.
on you before you know it.
Yeah. So on that note, like, how do y'all think about and make sure you're operating efficiently during the busy season, whether it's a planned busy season like summertime in Georgia, or it's some of the other stuff you're kind of talking about?
Hardest thing for us has been to move away from tribal knowledge. Have a lot of good quality people that are excellent at doing their jobs, but they all do them with a little different twist or flavor. That's hard to repeat. And muscle memory is a good technique to use. But when you're under pressure and when things are falling apart, we start to become more reactionary and less consistent. So quality can drop, productivity can drop, margins can fade. There's lots of issues that can come up. And what I would tell you is just kind of to put it into just a little phrase. Busyness doesn't really create any issues for us. It just magnifies the ones you already have.
Mhm.
So once you're already busy, it's kind of like you're already locked into the roller coaster and you've got regrets, but sorry, you're on for the ride now. There are some things that we've had success in doing once we're in the busy season. But the most important thing is always be keeping score and those things that you've knocked down when you're busy and you're like, hey, this is too painful, or this is something that I think we can address. Maybe it's a process or a personal issue, a personnel issue.
Mhm.
You try to keep that score. So when you get a second to breathe, you can address that and make that one less thing that gets magnified next busy season. So you're always working at kind of like professional sports. There's an on season and there's an off season.
Yeah.
The really successful sports teams work just as hard or harder in the off season than they do during the regular season. So A lot of ways it's the same for us. It's just when we find an issue or we identify a problem that needs to be solved. If we can solve it while we're in the middle of it, that's fantastic. But if nothing else, we got to keep a score. We got to keep it notated down so that we know when we slow down a little bit and we have some time to direct some resources and attention toward that, we can solve that problem better then.
Yeah. And what are some examples of that? Like what in your experience have you kind of seen as a area where you recognize, hey, we could do this better next time. Let's go do it this way now. Like like, can you give me an example of that? Or like how does that kind of fit into, what you plan and what like don't plan for?
Yeah, I think an easy example is at the dispatch level. So, on the HVAC side, our goal or our company mission is to have as much planned maintenance or planned work as possible scheduled, right? So, projects, that sort of stuff that you kind of got scheduled, and you want to schedule those out, and we I don't know if it's inadvertently or if it's on purpose, but we train our dispatch to have a full calendar, full calendar, full calendar. Always,
Mm,
don't have any guys with time available. Don't have any openings on the schedule. Have it filled out, right? And
mm,
then when you get busy and a customer calls and they need somebody to respond, who's going to respond? So the easiest thing, or what ends up happening, is I pull a guy off of this job and I
mm,
send him over here. Well, there's a demobilization, an inevitable remobilization that's got to happen. So there's non-productive time that's now been added to that clock. There's a getting tools gathered. There's a traveling across Atlanta, which is
mm.
never a good time to do. To go from one site to the next. So you got travel time, you got a lot of non-productive time, and you've really got to break. If you've got a guy that's got into his zone and he's really effective at making a repair or doing a maintenance, and you've now pulled him off and you've thrown him into a higher pressure scenario where there's a system down and there's a customer that's sweating and you've got these kind of problems going on. You've not done him any favors. He's now walking in cold into a hot environment and having to adjust to that. So productivity, efficiency, and that sort of stuff goes down. But it all started by dispatching, making sure everybody had full calendars, right? So
Yeah.
it's a hard pill to swallow at first if you don't believe in it, but it's definitely something to try. Is
Yeah.
don't schedule all your guys for all 8 hours of all 5 days of the week. Leave some guys open. It's it can be frustrating if I leave two guys on standby, or maybe I double them up somewhere so that they're doing something productive, or even something that I can build, but something that's not critical to pull them from. Maybe I just give him a 4-hour job today, and the second half of the day he's catching calls when they come in. It can be frustrating if I've set aside two guys and I only get one service call today, right? It can also be frustrating if I set aside two guys and I have 7 service calls a day. Two guys aren't going to get to 7 either. I'm still going to have to move some stuff around, right?
Yeah.
You got to have hard and fast rules. If I pull a guy off, I can only do that once. I've got to make a note in my dispatch system that says, this has already been pulled. I've already impacted this customer negatively. This is a no. We can't do this here again. And that managing lessons learned, set aside some available manpower, because the calls are going to come in. They're never going to be convenient, and they're never going to be when you're looking for something for an extra guy to do. You kind of have to schedule that out. And it's a bit like a firehouse philosophy. A firehouse is generally full of the firemen and women that are sitting by waiting on a call. Now, we're not trying to bill them out every hour, like we are our technicians, but as they're sitting by on standby, they're training, they're doing things that are productive, but they're prepared for the call. You've
Mhm.
got to have somebody mobile, somebody kind of central to the city location. Don't put them on the far extremities of the west side of town in case that call comes in on the east side of town. So there's a little bit of productive planning you can do there from a dispatch standpoint, that's very valuable. And
Mhm.
for us, the ideal guys to do that are those guys that are on call. So they would be catching the after hours calls anyway. And that rotation for us is from Monday through Sunday. So they're on it for a whole week. The on call guy that week is our call guy. He's
Yeah.
the guy he's the person that's going to be on standby, not non productive, but there's things he can be doing that are productive and not just unapplied labor. but you've got the guy sitting here that's ready to go on a call. And during the summer, we've gotten big enough and busy enough that, we're running 2 to 3 on-call guys a week, because with more customers and bigger demand customers, you're going to have guaranteed response times and things you have to do after hours. And you don't want to get to the end of a week of on-call, or even through a partial week, and a guy needs time off because he's been up all night. He's been working crazy hours. And so we try to split that out so that we don't have enough for 3 guys to be doing, but now we have a rotation. So I'm not wearing this guy out. If I knew he was out all night Monday night, at Tuesday night, my backup guy is going to catch these calls. We try to spread the love out that way a little bit.
Yeah. So how do y'all think about like some of that? Like when I think about planned and unplanned work, right? There's a planned work where you have your maintenance agreements, and there's the unplanned work, which is either going to be, you have an agreement with someone and something breaks that maybe was a surprise, and you need to react to that. But there's also the situations, like to your point that you brought up, where someone reaches out and there's like a request that kind of comes in. How do you think about the distribution of that planned and unplanned work going into that busy season?
That's a hard one. As the contractor, we have a duty to our customers, but as the contractor, and this has got to kind of be communicated, and your operations people need to live by this statement. You set the expectations you're willing to live with. Once you've set those expectations, or once you've accepted the customer's demand of expectations, that becomes the standard that you're held to, right? When calls come in, from a customer, let's say it's just an HVAC customer calls in and says, I've got a unit down and this is critical. Or they say they have a unit down, the response is, or script is, okay, I can get there second call tomorrow, or I can get there whenever the schedule permits, the existing schedule. Or is this an emergency? Ask the customer, because they're calling, they're trying to get something done, but is there a redundant unit? Is this a true critical system, or is this a comfort thing? Is this really is it really an emergency? And a lot of times you ask a customer that, they'll say, oh no, I'm fine waiting on so-and-so. I'm just trying to get the call in. I'm panicked. I'm frantic, whatever. And that allows you then to take that call and put it into a planned mode rather than just reacting to it. Right.
Yeah, love that.
What I'll tell you on the downside, or, if a customer says, yes, absolutely, this is an emergency, what a sales opportunity. Hey, Mr. Customer, you have this critical area, and you have no redundancy. You have no backup system. Hey, this is an opportunity for us to put it, because in all fairness, we're going to try to do our best to respond. But what if we couldn't? What if someone couldn't? Is your business process going to drop because you're relying on one system? Should we put in some redundancy and that sort? So that's not helping you deal with the business at the moment, but it's a great opportunity to minimize that later. But a lot of customers, and I would tell you, just this past week, yesterday, matter of fact, we've got a big project, had a bunch of hours in it, for fitters and welders. And, we had already agreed to, when we sent the proposal, we'd agreed to a schedule of 7 weeks to do this. And this is going to be 7 weeks with 2 4-man crews, working 10-hour days. And there was a lot to it. But we're like, okay, we can do this. We started quoting this last year. This was going to have to happen. It went on. And this is classic. This is what we typically hear. Customer approved it like Tuesday, and then reached out to us yesterday and said, hey, what can we do to drop it to a 5-week lead or 5-week process? And, we're like, 7 weeks is hard enough. They're wanting us to now add a third shift and, do a lot of other stuff, which, because of when it happened, middle of May, we've got other projects that we had lined up and planned. So this was a job we were wanting to make planned that has now become unplanned. We're starting it Monday and we're having to react to it. But we had to set that expectation that I can live with. I didn't tell the customer, you've had this job for 11 months and not approved it. If you'd approved it any time in the last 11 months, this wouldn't be an issue. You've
Yeah.
created this emergency, all the things I want to say. But what you got to tell them is like, man, we're going to do all we can. I'm going to give you all the resources I have. But the reality is, 7 weeks was a hard lift on this job. 5 weeks is, I can't commit to anything. I cannot commit to this. You're hearing me and I'm talking to you. I cannot commit to 5 weeks. I'm going to do my best to make it, maybe 6, or I'm going to do my best, but I can only commit to 7 weeks, right?
Yeah.
It's easy for us to respond to the customer and just say, yeah, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. And then sit back and go, how am I going to do that? What other jobs did I just impact and move around? And that's on a projects, those should be scheduled and laid out and planned. But too often, as soon as we get an approval, we get giddy and excited, and we just want to go ahead and throw everything. We want to get that one on the schedule, get it knocked out. Even if it means moving some stuff around, because man, this is the new hot thing. This is what's important at the moment, right? So I definitely have to keep up with. You have to live by the expectations, but you get to set them, which is very valuable. And that's what I try to explain to my people. When you're committing something to a customer, they don't have a gun to your head. There's nothing else. Don't fret the threat of, well, I'll take my business elsewhere or whatever else. I mean, we don't want to get to that point either. But just be open and honest. Say, hey, we want to get to you this quick. We want to do this, but we've got. If you skip over the planning or the layout of a job, this customer wants us to hit the ground and have pipe in the air within the first couple hours. That's possible. We can definitely do that. But if I skip over the layout of the project, if I skip over my startup meetings, if I skip over the things that make me efficient and make me finish early just to get started, all of a sudden I'm in the middle of the woods not knowing which way's out. So it takes discipline, but it takes comfort to be able to tell a customer, this is what I can do. And be comfortable that if the customer says, well, that's unacceptable, I'm sorry. I want to be acceptable, but this is within the realms of what we can do. If you don't, you'll end up with the pressure you'll end up with a job. You won't end up with any profits. You won't end up with any happiness or joy. I don't even know why you're in this business to do this, because you're doing it for the punishment or for the experience, whichever one, neither one of them are profitable or are good for me. I want to walk away from a job done well, customers happy, because I set a reasonable expectation up front. There's some negotiation in that, but at the end of the day, we get to set the expectations with the customers. And if it's a service call, if it's a reactive thing, and it's wow, this is critical, I got to have somebody here in the next 30 minutes or hour or whatever. And this is a classic thing for plumbing. Plumbing, there are customers out there that want you on a list, and they will tell you your second call, your third call, your first call, whatever. When they have an issue, they call them all, and the first one that gets there gets the job. And if you show up and you've adjusted and you've forsaken other customers and other jobs, and you got across town and that guy beat you by 5 minutes, his company's got the job and you don't.
Yeah.
Is that a job you want? Is that a customer you want to go after?
Yeah.
Right. If it's that critical and it's that big of an area, what is that? Have a fair conversation with that customer. What are you doing proactively to eliminate this? Are you jetting your lines, or do you have a drain program, or do you have a building? Are you doing anything proactive to save the panic, the loss of your process and productivity, and the cost of emergencies? Emergencies are expensive. They're not profitable, but they're very expensive, right? If the customer is willing to do all that and they just want to react and just operate a phone, I'm not going to risk my guy's safety or an accident in an automobile or anything, trying to beat my competitor to the job to get it. That customer does not value us. And at the end of the day, whatever revenue they may represent. And by the way, it's not planned. I can't forecast. I know this year I'm going to finish at this revenue because I'm expecting this stuff to come up. I don't know if this customer is going to call me or not, or how many times. That's a hard customer to manage. So managing your customers and setting your expectations with what you can live with. You're willing to take a little more risk? Hey, have at it. But just understand if you're taking a little bit more risk, that's a little more you got to deal with. And we do have to take risk. I'm not saying, just do the easy stuff. You won't stay in business for long, but you get to set the expectations. And your employees, your dispatch, your operation, they need to understand that and be comfortable with that. Especially your sales guys. Worst thing is a customer that doesn't call dispatch, but they call your sales team and says, "Hey, I've got a call." Sales guy, I can tell you verbatim, is going to say, "I got a guy on the way. I'm hurrying up." He doesn't even know if a guy's available. He doesn't know anything, right? He just, man, this customer called me. I've been working this account. I'm going to get a guy there. I'm going to get a guy there. And it turns out to be something that's it's 2 degrees warmer than it should be. It's a time of day start, or it's something that's not even a real issue, right? But a sales guy will never slow. I shouldn't say never, but will rarely slow down and ask a customer, is this an emergency? Or what, better yet, hey, let me help you. I will call dispatch and I'll have them call you and have them make the commitment. Or, hey, thanks for calling me. Would you call this number? If you don't want to do that and you want to take care of it, then say, I'll call dispatch. I'll have her call you back. And then she can make commitments and do whatever else and stay in the loop, soften it for the customer, do what you can do, but you got to resist just unreasonable expectations because a customer called. Yeah. There's an old joke. If the customers will quit calling, we could get something done around here. It's to your detriment. You definitely want them to call.
Yeah.
But unreasonable customers, in my belief, we've trained them that way. Because of our reactivity and what we do, we've trained these customers. Somebody in our industry has trained these customers to be this way. Somebody's destroyed their trust. Somebody's done these things. If I can get some traction and I can help this customer and I can help kind of retrain them, provide them what they need, but retrain them with some more reasonable expectations that I can meet, then I'll have a more successful relationship with them.
Yeah. No, I love so much of what you said between like the expectation setting and being on the same page with customers and just communicating is
Yeah.
it goes such a long way in, not having to dramatically change what you and your business and your team is having to do in a given moment. Based off a customer call, just kind of getting on the same page of what's going on and setting expectations goes a really long way. And to your point, I think I really like you said earlier too, is, finding those opportunities to create sales opportunities, right? Where if there is
Yep.
something that breaks or if there is like a reactive kind of moment, you can create a planned moment. And that those planned moments are so powerful because to your point, you also said, when you think about like revenue projections, you think about your margins, you think about how you staff and grow teams, there's so much benefit to that planned work. And thinking about how you turn unplanned into planned work is such a powerful part of this entire process. So I loved so much of what you said there. It was great. And so kind of like on that note of like the planned and unplanned work, um, in passing busy seasons, what have you kind of seen uh what's been the difference in past busy seasons, past years of what's gone well and gone smoothly versus like what hasn't gone well? Like what's kind of been the differences and the lessons you've learned between those two in the past years?
When it goes well is because you've planned, and you're controlling.
Mhm.
You're controlling your labor. You're controlling which jobs are getting on your dispatch is controlling dispatch and not overextending your field resources. You're controlling you have done proper planning and you are executing to a process. That's when it goes well. Anytime, even when it's going well, anytime that it becomes disruptive or becomes a problem, if you have the time or you take the time to look at it, it's going to be because something skirted your process, something worked its way around, something has come in and has impacted with an unreasonable expectation or even a reasonable expectation, but something that you didn't account for or plan for that you have to react to. Anytime we get into reacting mode, when we start becoming reactionary, labor productivity goes down, margins are going to fade. We're going to spend more time, less productive time. We're going to have wasteful purchasing. Where guys are The classic with a field HVAC guy is, I went to the supply house because I had to get a 3/4 elbow. And he comes back and he gets it in the pipe and he moves a little bit and it's got to go back to supply house and get another 3/4 elbow, right? At the end of the job, you're looking at it, you're going, dude, you made 5 supply house trips on this, right?
Yeah.
Because you're, and it's like the horse blinders, you see this and you're solving this problem. And as soon as it moves, there's this other new problem here. Back up and plan the job. Look at the job.
Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes with the customers panting down your neck to tell them, say, I need a moment to plan this. I can answer your questions. I will give you all the information you need. Give me a minute to see the whole picture and see what's going on here so I can solve the issue, right? So generally when a tech, there can be nefarious or bad reasons why a tech might want to run 5 supply house runs, right? That's a people problem. That's so easy to deal with.
Yeah.
But you got people that are good people that that are salvageable or that are manageable. And you look at it, you're like, why did you go to the supply house 5 times? Why did you take the pipe out of this out down the hall and you turned left and right and left when you could have just turned right and been there? Did you plan the job out and did you look at it? So communication anytime and all the time, whether it's busy or not busy, you have to be communicating. Guys in the field have to have technical support, and they have. And when I say support, they have to have somebody that believes in them and backs them up. If when I started when I took over as service manager in 2014, a previous service manager, phenomenal guy. I mean, he's like a daddy to me. He's the reason we all are the way we are. Just an amazing guy, right? He was asked years prior to grow the service department. And, this is where the set the expectation you can live with comes from. His response to the owner was 100% agree. That's definitely what you need to do running your business, but you'll have to hire a different service manager because he run a 10, 12-man shop and he was very good at it. Best I think there's ever been. This is what he's going to run. And he knew his limits and what he could do. Right. So he set that expectation and that's what he did. When I didn't set that expectation when he retired and I was given the opportunity, I already accepted the challenge that we're going to grow the service department. And I was trying to emulate everything he did the way he did it because he did it. I mean, it was perfect, right? And I learned really quick that my desk is only so wide. And if everything that the company does has to come across my desk, it's a choke point. And we're not going to be able to grow if I have to stay as involved as he was involved, right? And not that that's wrong. That's just if you're going to grow, that's a challenge. So what I had to start and I had to talk to our people that we had at the time as we started to grow. And I had to say, look, I am available like he was. You want to call me and we want to talk through the problem you're up against in the field. I said, but there's the new fad of the 1-3-1, bring me a problem, bring me 3 solutions, bring me your recommendation. It was very similar to that. But I just said, hey, if you're going to bring me a problem, tell me. You're in the field. You're sitting there. You're living it. You're experiencing it. I'm sitting in this office. Not that I don't know what you need to do, but my propensity to make a bad decision is much greater than yours at this moment. Make the decision. And what I will do is I will not hang you for making a bad one. If you make a bad decision and there's a cost involved, right? I'm going to call that tuition as long as we learn from it. Now, if you're dishonest or if there's some issue or you don't learn from this, we're going to have a postmortem and I'm going to sit down and say, hey, you made this decision. I back you on that. Now knowing this other stuff, was that the same decision you would have made? We've got to learn from it, right? But at the end of the day, decisions have to be made by your frontline people and your guys and your people in the field. So you can't hang a guy or fire a guy over making a bad decision. If you can assess that he made an effort, he took what information was available to him and he made a gut call. He made a decision, whatever, based on some information in the field. You're going to have those issues and you got to support those guys and allow those guys to kind of do it. But the biggest key to me is from an operational, from a company level, all the way down to even if it's a service call and it's just a unit that's not heating or not cooling or whatever, the fundamental first step always has to be step back, take a plan, look at this thing. You can't just jump into it and assume it's the same as the last 3 service calls you were on, or assume it's the same as the last 3 times you repaired this unit. It may be, and that's fair, but good diagnostic process. I'm going to go through and check these things first. I'm going to go through and check these things first, and don't abandon your process. What I said earlier about no tribal knowledge, same thing, right? If we're going to have a process for us for how we're going to invoice, or we're going to have a process for how we're going to communicate HR issue, whatever, we should have a process for how we diagnose, right? And if you want to maintain quality, you have to have a process. It doesn't have to be real heavy, but it has to be something that a guy does. Then he knows, if I walk up to a unit, no assumptions. I already know what it is. Hey, write it on a piece of paper, and at the end of the day, just confirm yourself that you were right, if that makes you feel better. But go through your process every time, and then you don't get. If you can if you can fix it right first time, you can limit callbacks. Regardless of how busy you are, there's a certain percentage of them that are going to be callbacks. There's a certain percentage of those callbacks that are not labor or material warranties, or not due to bad labor. There's something related that I didn't catch that. I didn't look at that. And in the customer's perspective, I've got a unit. It wasn't doing this. You fixed it. Now it's not doing this. Well, Mr. Customer, that's not a warranty. I fixed this, right? But the customer's like, but this is the unit, and I had you come out and evaluate it, right? You skipped your process. You didn't check everything out. You didn't do it. You just panicked and fixed put a Band-Aid on the bleed for a moment and said, yeah, it's up and running. Temperatures are down. I got to roll because there's something else I have to react to. Anytime you step away from planning and get into reacting, it's rarely going to come out to your benefit.
Yeah. So much of this conversation is really driving home to me and for me, just, around planning, just the need for being aware of what's kind of happening and being able to kind of like look into the future, right? And that's where things like maintenance and contract agreements kind of come into place. That's thinking about, like, to your point, what the right SOP process should be for a company in terms of how you handle particular moments or situations, or even like customers. And also, like, how do you document all of that, right? How do you not just have it in someone's head, and if that person were to retire or go away or be off at a particular point in time, that knowledge is gone, right? So it's thinking about how do
Yeah.
you put things on paper, right? From like a sales perspective, but even like an internal operating perspective, how do you kind of standardize how everybody kind of works together? So yeah, I loved all of that. On the operations front, can you kind of tell me something that's in your mind simple in theory, maybe, but it's like kind of hard to actually execute in practice?
And I hate to keep struggling on the plan stuff, but communication and intentional communication, right?
Yeah.
I can consume a whole day reacting to to changes in jobs. This thing's gone sideways. This stuff's putting out fires. If all you ever do is go around and put out fires, you'll always have fires to put out. That's where you spend your time, and that's your way of operating. You're a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll always have fires to put out, right?
Mhm.
Communication is key above all things. What I would say, I know I said earlier, issues you already have. Being busy doesn't create new issues. It just reveals and magnifies the ones you have, right? So communication is already a problem.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, there's really 2 levels of communication. There's technical communication. There's technical information that needs to be passed and shared. There's technical conversations that need to be had. There's lots of technical conversation. You need to communicate with your customer, but with your team, with the people that are putting the fix in place. You need to have those communications. Oftentimes, if you can sit back and evaluate it, all of your reactive communications are because you didn't have proactive. You didn't plan a communication for. You didn't tell them this one part. It's every job is like that. Why would he know that already, right? I assume he already knew something. I walked it and I saw it. I talked to the customer and I knew this. I just assumed the tech, this should be easy for him, right? But if you don't stop and have an intentional conversation about something, then whose fault is it when something happens? Because I didn't communicate a standard, an expectation, or a scope, clearly enough to him. And when we get busy, those communications get more abbreviated. And the things that get cut out are things of value. But we're in a hurry. We're flying by the seat of our pants, and we're trying to, I'm trying to knock out 8 problems a day instead of my typical 4 I can get done well in a day, right? So as I'm going around, I'm just cutting some time. I'm cutting some corners. I'm trying to get in there, but the communication stuff is what starts to magnify or create bigger issues. The second problem, and we're in a business of fixing machines. We're in a business of systems and machines, but we're in a people business. If you're going to have technical conversations, you got to have personal. You got to have relational conversations. Life is heavy and hard, and that I'd heard before. If you're not going through some struggles right now, you're either just coming out of some or you're fixing to go into some. Right? Life is hard. And the life for your technicians, your plumbers, your admin and accounting staff, their lives are hard too. If you're not having some touches intentionally of, how are you? How is your family? What's going on? If you're watching a guy and his productivity is always at a high level and his stuff's all, and you just kind of notice the last 3 or 4 jobs, something's not, he's just not, doesn't have his attention to detail or whatever. A simple conversation, you might find out he's got a kid that just had a bad diagnosis, or he's lost a parent, or, a parent's something's happened, right? There might be some financial stress. There might be some marital. There might be something going on in his life that has got his mind, has got him caught. Now, I'm going to pull that guy in and I'm going to have a technical conversation with him. And I'm expecting him to hear and remember and adhere to every little bit of detail I tell him. He's not in my meeting. I mean, he's physically there, but he's not in it because I haven't had that time to see, where, how are you, man? Hey, by the way, I noticed you've had 30 hours of overtime the last couple of weeks. Would you like a nap yet? How tired are you? Because I know you're not productive. I know you're a risk. But if I'm not looking at those things, I'm not having those conversations. Thank you for keeping our customer as a priority. Thank you for getting this in and for working these extra hours. And we worked around the clock. And thank you for doing all this. Brother, take a break. Don't punish him for it. Take a break. You got something going on. Hey, I might have to ask you. I get that. And you know what? I know I'm going to have to stay a little closer to you on this job, not to manage you, but to help you. Right? I've got to help you on this job. Or if I have the ability, I need to pull this next guy. You know what? Hey, I got some filters to change. I got some stuff you can, you're not going to be unsafe, but some places where you can work this stuff out. You might need to come in late. You might need to leave early. You might need to take a few days. You need to solve that problem. At the end of the day, everybody that I know that works here, we're a family. We all love it here. I don't know a guy that would work here if we didn't pay him. I would love to think we'd do it for a greater cause, but we're all here because we're getting paid, right? It's a means to an end. Why do they have a job to start with? They're not a podcaster, they're not independently wealthy. There's not all these other issues, whatever it is. Those are just other methods. They got to have the job, right? Even if they love the job, and I hope they do, but they've got to have a job. They matter. The human matters. You can't dehumanize the job. You can't dehumanize the issues. You have to make sure that you're having those relational conversations besides just the technical ones. And you should be close enough. I can't be close enough to all 100 guys anymore. But you break down a system. I have an operations manager. I have service managers. I have field supervisors. So, give each of those guys 4, 6, 8, up to 10 guys, right? Those are your guys. Now, I only need to keep up with my 10 that are keeping up with the 10 below them. But those are the 10. I'm like, hey, anybody having any issues? Anybody struggling? Who needs something? What's going on? Hey, we had an employee that, they just got married. They're getting married. Tell me that don't take your attention away. Now, I'm married. I know marriages generally happen in the summer. Guess when we're busy? We're in this, in the summer. This guy's got a fiance that he's in love with, and you know what? She needs some of his time and attention at this moment. And here I am trying to figure out if I can get him to work 7/12s this week, because we got to get this stuff in. He might not have the boldness to protect his expectations, and he allows me to call him in. I've created issues for him over here, and now I've got a guy that's not giving me the quality I need. At the end of the day, he's shooting me in the foot. If I just had a conversation, I didn't know you were getting married. Why wouldn't I know that? This, and that's part of you gotta have that conversation. Then you can plan. The worst thing is put a plan together without anybody else's input. Put a plan together and see how smart it looks. When you start, well, I already got this figured out. Well, did you not know this guy's got vacation and he's going out on this? Did you not know this guy's already promised to this other customer over here? If you don't involve everybody to make this plan and you don't know the guys relationally and what's in their lives, then, whose fault is it that now I put weight and bearing on this person to bring in something of quality and they fail at it? Whose fault is that? And who should bear that responsibility?
Yeah, totally. I love what you said, right, around the relational aspect of this business. It is such a people business. It is, we forget about it because we're dealing with machines and we're dealing with software, we're dealing with all kinds of different things. But at the end of the day, it is so much of a people business, and understanding who you're working with, understanding the partners you work with, understanding who your customers are, understanding your peers. All that stuff is really important to the success of your business. And so that was beautifully said. Thank you for all of that. One last question for you. Um,
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, so what kind of changed your thinking about how you run the business? Was there a moment where you realized you had to do something differently?
Uh, yeah. And I know this all kind of keeps saying about the plan versus the reactive work.
Yeah.
When I first came out of the field as a technician and went into account management or sales, I looked for customers that I knew were going to have problems. Customers that had been band-aiding too long or deferring maintenance, or and my philosophy or my hope was, when that customer has a catastrophe, they're going to be panicked, they're going to have pressure, they're going to have the most uncomfortable day they could have at their office, and they're going to call me, and my team's going to show up, and we're going to just calm the storm. We're going to solve the issues. We still have, but we had some really good guys, some really creative guys, some really smart guys, and some guys that could almost MacGyver, could kind of put some stuff together, right? So I was like, what, that's going to be my differentiator between me and the competitors is going to be our responsiveness, our speed to respond, but also our solutions and how we could solve these problems. Work the whole thing up. I read a book or something. I don't know. And it took some time. It took some experience for me to start to realize that customer did not value me at all. If I was able to solve an issue for them and hook up a maintenance plan on the back and say, hey, here's the sales pitch, right? This happened because you didn't have maintenance. Here's some maintenance. I'm actually not a proponent of the word preventive maintenance. I get it, but from a customer standpoint and just wording, what am I preventing? Because the next thing that happens is I now have the maintenance program, and a piece of that 20-year-old, 25-year-old equipment that's had deferred maintenance and Band-Aids and everything else on it breaks again. The customer's mad at me now because I'm paying you to maintain it. Why did it break? Good question. And then what do you end up doing? You end up kind of creating an invoice. What you end up creating is a problem-based relationship, because the only time you and that customer ever get a chance to talk is when they have a problem. So that anytime they're experiencing pain, that's when you come involved. They see you as pain delivered, right? And if the customer strongly believes that's the way to operate their business, there's lots of good companies out there that can help them. I did not want to be one of them anymore. I started to see the value and the understanding of planned work. Planned work is more productive. It's more profitable. It's easier on the guys. The other thing we talked about, the humanizing of it, or the people themselves. You know what? When you pull 5 or 6 of them in and you work, 2 or 3 days straight and long nights just to get this customer back online, your guys aren't happy. They've been in the pressure cooker and under all the everything else just to try to get something together. And they know, I'm hacking this. I'm just making this work. This is not the right way to do this, right? We're just trying to get this customer back online as quickly as possible. They know it's not their best work. So you're asking them to do substandard stuff, but you're asking them to maintain a level of quality. You're pressuring them in the high pressure situations where customers are panicked and everybody's upset, and yet they've got to perform, with someone panting down their back. And all, it's a total recipe for disaster. I couldn't find one redeeming attribute of it that I was like, this is something we need to continue because it's good. If I have a good customer and now if our ideal customer profile, if this customer is a forward thinker and is willing to invest operationally to save and prevent downtime and that sort of stuff. I'm responsible as a steward for them not to waste their money. There's pressure on us still to make sure if we're doing this stuff and we're finding these things, we tell our guys, even when you're busy, most guys naturally are trained or are trained by us, whether we planned it or not, to get off the job as quickly as they can. Get off the job as quickly as you can. I got 4 more calls on the board. I need you off the job. I need you to hurry up. I need you to hurry. Somebody at the office is calling them. We've communicated to them, get off the job as quickly as you can. When we should be communicating to them, look to stay on the job. What else is there? I'm not asking you to upsell. And you got to be clear about that. I'm not asking you to find frivolous things and things to waste a customer's money. I'm asking you to slow down. You've worked on this unit here. What's that unit behind you doing? Just listen, just pay attention while you're here, because when you leave, now there's a service call. What can we do to help this customer? When you're going down there and say, hey, I fixed this. I changed this compressor. I did blah, blah, blah. While I was up there, I heard this other thing over here. And I tell everybody, I don't care if a customer approves it. I really don't. All our responsibility is to tell the customer where the risk is, to tell the customer where the problems are. It is 100% their decision of whether or not they want to proactively act on it and protect uptime, or if they just want to gamble and wait on it. If they want to gamble and wait on it, I'm not upset. That's fine. I've done my job. I have found the issue and I've revealed the issue to you. That is my job. My job's not to just fix this problem and get off your property as quickly as possible to minimize your hours that you're being billed. Do I take an extra 15, 20 minutes? Let's do that. Let's make sure we've let this customer know. So moving and training a customer toward planned events and maximizing uptime. If you talk to your customers, from a plumbing standpoint, water damage is huge. It's the number one insurance claim. It's just a significant issue for a property owner, right? How can I minimize that? I want the service call. I want the backed up drain. I want the stuff out on the floor, because I want to be needed. Everybody wants to be needed and wants to be a hero, right? But what can I do to help that customer? That last time I was there on a plumbing call, if I was cameraing this drain, did I go a little farther? Did I look around? Did I just, did I check the stacks? What did I do to try to make sure this customer doesn't have, that they can maximize their productivity, maximize their uptime, so that, I'm going to put all this together in a riddle. I didn't plan this, but when I first started, and that guy I told you that was our service manager, he ran this on me one day, and everybody I've ever hired, I told them, I said, if you own a landscaping company and your number one customer represents, more than 50% of your work, has a really nice house, you've got a crew out there every week, you're doing all this work or whatever. They call you frantically on a Saturday morning. Irrigation line is busted in the yard and is washed out. You got this big muddy ditch. Their daughter's getting married. They got rehearsal dinner over at the house. All this big stuff's going on. The HOA is going to be mad. There's all these problems going on, right? And then at the end of the day, the riddle comes out is, what does your customer want? And technical guys always, well, He wants the water turned off. He wants the irrigation fixed. He wants the grass put, the new sod put back down. He wants, you come up with, he wants me to respond. He wants me to have empathy. You come up with all these different answers. At the end of the day, all your customer wanted was green grass. That was it. They didn't want the irrigation system. You told them they had to have that to have green grass. They didn't want your weed and feed. They didn't want your aerating system. They didn't want your lawn. All they wanted was green grass because their neighbors have it and they want to be like the Joneses. They want to have green grass, right? Everything else that we've installed, it's my responsibility. I've created all those problems. So if all that customer wants is green grass, can I now operate in a way to give them green grass? If I'm out there every week, how did I not know that they were having this big event coming this weekend? Should I have turned the water off? Should I have drained down, winterized? What could I have done proactively that, and I'm not a landscaper, but I'm assuming would have taken minutes, not hours. What could I have done to ensure this customer wants green grass? He's going to have it Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to be back out here Monday. I'll check the area. What could I do? Our customers, most of them, whether it be commercial office or hospital or industrial, whatever, they have a job. I've never met a property manager that knew in kindergarten that they wanted to be a property manager. They're usually an accountant or somebody that's kind of fell into that because they were responsible, and somewhere in property management, commercial properties, they were given this additional responsibility. Most of them not any additional compensation, but they were given this responsibility, right? They didn't wake up thinking, how can I operate my property better? They woke up knowing I've got budgets to do. I've got variances. I've got accounting to look over. I've got engineering staff. I've got a tenant event coming up. What do they want? They don't want green grass. They don't want any house calls. They don't want to be told your hotel operator, your engineering manager does not want the general manager to call him and say, we're getting bad reviews and I'm having to give money back to 3 guests that stayed last night because it was hot in their room. That is what he doesn't want, right? He doesn't want to have to call me for me to come in and find out why those units weren't cooling. He doesn't want any of that stuff. Now he has to do that. But when my guys are out there, what can they do to make sure we're providing the customer what they want? And I have to be humble enough to know I don't have any customers that want me there. They don't want me there. But if they have to have me, if I become a necessary evil in their life, in their business, and they have to have me out there, what can I do to make myself as unobstructive or as inconvenient? Can I provide them service that they don't realize they're getting? Can we do something for that customer to give them what they want, whether they can articulate it or understand it or anything? Can I give them what they want, maximum uptime, and not having to call me? Let me plan. Let me be out here. I'll be out here in 3 months on the next PM. And while I'm out here, I'm going to check things and I'm going to look for stuff. And I'm going to give you a report that just says, hey, if it's a test and inspect, if it's a full service, then I'm just going to fix these problems, right? But it's on me to make sure you're not incurring problems. If you can get, and I'm preaching about this, we're not great at it. That's we're moving in that direction. We're getting better at it. But what we're seeing in payoffs are there's less frantic during the busy. We still have busyness. The peaks and valleys are a lot closer than they used to be. We're not going from dispatch at 3:00 in the afternoon. We're sitting around trying to find something for 3 guys to do. And a week or two later, we're like, man, I wish we had 7 more guys because we're busy. This reacting, there's no way to plan labor for that. There's just no way to plan. And if you can't plan, you can't predict. And I don't know who out there has an owner that's just comfortable not knowing what revenue and GP and net's going to be, their EBITDA is going to be this year, and find it out in month 12. They want to know in month 1. How can I tell an owner, or now that I am the owner, how can I determine what's my overhead spend going to be this year? How much can I invest and what can I do with software? And what can I do in spending money? I can't plan to spend money if we're not going to make it. So how do I plan what's coming in? If I don't have planned work and a backlog and that sort of stuff, and I'm just reacting and I'm praying, I'm hoping I get 12 service calls this week. I really need the temperature to get to the 90s. I need some weather. I need some stuff. I need some service calls. that's not fun. And it's hard. And then you end up, you're like, okay, I'm 6, 8 months in, and I'm not going to make my numbers again this year. Okay, how you gonna make them next year? You got to plan. If you can't plan, you can't predict. If you can't predict, good luck.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so many great points here, Brad. Yeah, it's so important to think about how you can plan and try to minimize as much as you can that unplanned part or turn the unplanned into planned. So yeah, a lot of great advice here, and thanks for taking the time, by the way, to kind of walk us through, talk about all these different things. I appreciate the honesty and the candidness, and so much of the focus also on the people that you kind of talked about, thinking about the relational aspect of like our business. I think it's so critical and so important to some of the planned stuff that you're talking about here. So I think everybody who'll be watching this, and learning a lot from you here is going to really see like the importance, like during these peak seasons, these peak times, how important it is to plan. And it's about thinking about process, it's thinking about operationally, how do you remove the friction that's kind of slowing down your business? And so, the company can perform well and the team all feels comfortable, confident, and can perform to its best as well. So with all that, Brad, thanks for being here. Everybody who'll be watching this, thanks for watching, and looking forward to our next time we get together.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.